Okay, now we're going to delve deeply into the subject of self-intelligence. What is it all about? This is a new term for most people. The word intelligence is not a new term. We have been given all different kinds of intelligence throughout our life. Physical intelligence, we've been taught how to exercise and eat well and brush our teeth and all sorts of array of things. In the physical realm, we've been given intellectual intelligence throughout our entire life. Our schooling, our conditioning certainly celebrates the intellect, and it's given us huge advantages in life. Learning to read and write, as one example, has been a tremendous advantage in being able to communicate with each other. That wasn't an intelligence that we had, millennia ago. So these levels of intelligence are emerging on the planet, emerging in the human kingdom. Emotional intelligence is something that is developing on this planet amongst people. The recognition of emotion, and that there's more than just sadness, anger and happiness. There's a whole diverse range of nuanced emotional feelings that we are going to be covering quite extensively in this training. And as a part of self-intelligence, it comes underneath that. We also have energetic intelligence. There are people out there sensitive enough who have been able to intuitively tune into the energy systems of our bodies, of our earth, of all different things. This is a massive field of study. If you've done acupuncture or looked at Ayurvedic medicine, the chakra systems, and there's a whole world in that discovery, and very important and certainly helpful to a whole range of things. But now we are coming to self-intelligence, and I feel like I've gone through a lot of those different layers myself as a practitioner, as a musculoskeletal therapist, starting at the physical level and going to psychosomatic therapy, more dealing with that emotional intelligence level and the energetic intelligence level, and results coaching, looking at how we tick and looking at our values and those different areas, all bringing about an awareness of more gross in vibration and more subtle in vibration. And now we're hitting the most subtle when we're talking about the self-intelligence. And this is where we are landing in the most holistic, the core of essentially every aspect of our experience. And so when dealing with the challenges of life, getting to this place of subtlety is where you have the greatest degree of power, and also simplicity. So this subject, unlike many of those other subjects, can be quite challenging to learn. There's a lot involved. It can be complex. The beauty about self-intelligence is that it is not complex. It is simple, but the application of it can be challenging because it's a letting go process. Self-intelligence is a removal of what causes suffering in our lives, which we're going to get deeply into. I often refer to self-intelligence as the modern day psychology that goes beyond the mind into the heart of who we truly are. Often the realms of psychology happen to stay within the mental and intellectual intelligence sphere, whereas self-intelligence goes beyond into the heart space. Everything about this work is bringing us into the intelligence of our heart. And this is not a fluffy, kind of concept. It is power, and it's essentially what is our most natural understanding and expression that guides us in our lives. Self-intelligence is the self-education that empowers you to live beyond the limitations of psychological fear and belief systems that arise from living principally through the lens of the ego. Self is about you and not the nagging critical voice in your head, but the real you beyond the mind-made, ego-based self-image most people mistake themselves to be. When I use the word self, it immediately points to the idea of the me, the person inside, who essentially rubs up against reality and either is getting what it wants or fearful of not getting what it wants, and has this whole relationship, right, with reality, the personal me, and who also has, characteristics and personality traits and all of those things. The word self in self-intelligence is speaking to beyond that. The observer that you experienced, if you have gone through the wake-up experience, the self is what's behind, what is witnessing everything that manifests in reality, including your thoughts, your beliefs, your intuition, your values, your memories, your body, everything. This is the self. And in the vibration of being in the seat of yourself, it is the vibration of love, it is the vibration of truth, it is the vibration of wisdom, it is the vibration of joy. It has everything in it that we want, that we are aspiring to achieve without having to do anything. I want to be clear from the get-go, that's what self relates to when you're talking about self-intelligence. Now, intelligence is to have the knowledge, embodied skills, and habits that give you the confidence and ability to remove everything that is not naturally you. So what that means is, whilst we are this observer, and that is clear and that can be discovered in 10 minutes, the challenging part is not being in the habit of identifying with everything that is not who you truly are. And that identification process creates a whole array of challenges and struggle and suffering, and that's going to be explained at length. But the intelligence is how to remove the identification process that generates that suffering. The definition of intelligence means the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. I love this because as a therapist and as a coach, over the years, so many people have come to me with, behind the energy, the intention was, can you fix me? I've got all these problems. Can you fix me? Can you take them off me? And what that says is we're not even aware that we actually have this capacity to have skills and habits that overcome these internal challenges, that you can apply yourself to do that. And you're not stuck with being broken inside. That's what this whole community is about, is to support the development of that. And doing that together is really powerful. If you're experiencing toxic emotions and addictions, fatigue, chronic health issues and pain, relationship dramas and triggers, whether that's romantic, family, friendships, workmates, feeling like lacking direction and purpose in life, 9 times out of 10 or more, when these issues show up, it's a symptom of not being true to yourself. And again, I mean true to self, the self that's not the person inside, the self that's the witness of that, the beyond that. Depression, anxiety, stress, addiction, overwhelm, mental health issues, chronic illness, suicide. These are the results of low self-intelligence. You'll discover as you develop self-intelligence, these things start to wither away. These things start to disappear. These are not permanent states. Overwhelm isn't a permanent state. Anxiety is not a permanent state. Depression is not a permanent state. Suicidal ideation is not a permanent state. These things are results of a misidentified self. And so you have the capacity to shift that. But that doesn't seem possible, or that just seems almost like too good to be true, because we weren't taught this subject at school or at home. And the sheer lack of education, experience, and skills means that most people struggle and suffer in the lack of know-how. When you're experiencing a major trigger, for example, or anxiety, or a bout of depression or suicidal thoughts, who has been taught at school, this is how you address this? This is how you go about it. If you're experiencing holes in your teeth and you go to the dentist, they'll show you exactly what to do. Here's how you floss, here's how you brush, this is about toothpaste, this is da-da-da. And it's a clear process. And we see the results. Or if you learn how to drive a car, or if you learn how to read and write. If you've learned how to read and write, you can read and write. It's clear as day. But it's challenging to learn how to read and write. It takes time to develop, but it frees you. It gives you many different opportunities you wouldn't otherwise have. It gives you confidence in areas you wouldn't. And this is the same for self-intelligence. But we just weren't taught this at school. We weren't taught when life doesn't go your way, how to approach things. This is what we have to start accepting. And it's a challenging thing to accept that we weren't taught or conditioned anything about ourselves. It just couldn't be true. Like, how did we miss the most important information that could possibly be? Right? Because you are the common denominator in everything that happens in your life. So you are the most important thing to be aware of and to be super knowledgeable about and to be skilled in. But this is the state of our experience and humanity, and we can see the repercussions of it all over the world. You're not here to learn how to be yourself, but rather how to remove everything that stops you. What that means is when you're conditioned in a certain way by your parents and by society and so on, you're given certain beliefs and you've had certain experiences you then tell yourself certain stories, and all of this inhibits your natural expression. So rather than trying to teach you how to be natural, because that would be unnatural, you're learning how to remove what's unnatural so your naturalness is free to flow and express and be spontaneous in this experience of life. And what stops that natural flow of expression is having this false sense of self, the ego inside, having psychological fears, holding on to old stories, limiting beliefs, inner conflicts, addictions and distractions, caring about what other people think, not feeling enough, having unresolved trauma. All of this amounts to like a baggage that weighs you down, makes you feel stuck and blocked and unable to be natural in any context, essentially. Your relationships, your health, and sense of purpose in the world all depend on your ability to stay natural to yourself. Staying natural to yourself is not the person. Staying natural to yourself is removing the identification with things. I am this, I am that, I believe this, I think that, ... This is what that's speaking about. That is what is being natural to yourself, which is the vibration of love and truth and wisdom that naturally pours out into your experience. So how do we do this? Now I'm going to go through what I like to term the 7 medicines of self-intelligence. This is the how-to. This is the pillars, the energetic framework, if you like, of what brings together the whole teaching of self-intelligence and what you're going to be interacting with as a part of this community. Medicine 1, understanding. The first piece of understanding that you have been offered is the unofficial first module of self-intelligence, which was the wake-up experience. So rather than just throw a whole bunch of concepts at you, I wanted you to experience who you are beyond all identification, and also support you to understand what causes drama and suffering in our lives, which is essentially fear and psychological fear. Fear if I don't get what I want out there, I'm not going to be okay in here. Or if I cannot stop what I don't want to happen, I'm not going to be okay in here. So all of a sudden, everything gets orientated externally. That's the idea. And this creates anywhere from low level anxiety, a high level anxiety, and insanity, basically, in all different areas of our lives. So it's important that you understand at the basic level and simple. If I maintain this idea, and everyone has it, it starts from very early on in our lives, that to feel okay, to feel at ease, to feel fulfilled, something out there has to happen. Something out there has to do something to me to make me feel that way. That idea is the cause of suffering. And everything shoots off that, and you're going to understand that process surgically. You are going to see that. You're going to be masterful at identifying how that happens, because the whole process of self-intelligence is how to interrupt that delusion. The second medicine of self-intelligence is self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is the art of asking questions that reveal who you really are. What I want you to do now, without any thought at all, is just count to 10. Right now, in your mind or out aloud, just count to 10. Now, my question is, did you start at 0? Now, most people won't start at 0. We start at 1. Now, mathematics would be impossible without 0, and yet we don't acknowledge it because it's nothing. Here's the thing. You are 0. Who you are as that witness is 0. So there's you, then there's the body, mind, the person, conditioning, memory, past, future, beliefs, values, imagination, intuition, your life. The idea of my life comes after you. This is really critically important to understand, because when 0 is not at the center of your experience and your life, we start at I'm a thing. We don't start at 0, we start at 1. 1 being your body, mind. I am my body and my mind. That's who I am. That's how it starts. And then everything flows out from that. So the foundation starts beyond 0. This is what's happening, and this is the cracks in the foundation from the very get-go. So there it flows on, and when 0 is not the foundation of who you are, then ego, which is the person inside that we perceive ourselves to be, is the foundation for your entire experience of life. So self-inquiry is the quest of discovering 0 as who you really are. Medicine 3, self-recognition practices. Self-recognition practices are self-inquiry questions put in a meditation context. So rather than just asking a basic question, you sit and you ask these questions, or you are guided through these questions, which you will be given guided self-recognition meditation practices to marinate in the 0 that you are, to acclimatize, because we're so habituated to be something, right? To start beyond that. It's a habit. It's a very deep habit. And so you're going to be starting the habit of starting before that, recognizing yourself prior to what shows up. And that includes your mind. That includes that person inside. That includes what you feel, your emotions, all of these things. You're the witness of all of that. And that has been the purpose of most meditation practices. And there has been so much science suggesting and proving how it improves stress levels and physical health, mental health, emotional health, sleep, addictions, concentration, memory, libido, anti-aging. The list goes on and on and on about the profound benefits of meditation. There are so many studies out there. It's alarming. Western medical doctors recommend meditation because they cannot get away from the fact that the science is bringing forward. Self-recognition is exactly that. All these different meditation techniques essentially lead to the same place. They do it in different ways, but it's to lead back home to yourself. Then we have emotional release in the form of body tremor and breath work. When we're living through that personal self, the one inside that's basically living through the psychological fear of loss, right? The fear of not getting what you want, the fear of getting what you don't want. There is this gradual kind of psychological lifting off the planet. You may have experienced this when you get overwhelmed and anxious and emotionally turbulent. It's like there's this lifting off. And with trauma, as another example, we actually hover psychologically away from Earth, if you like. And between where we're at and the Earth is this whole host of emotions and energy that's held. And so emotional release naturally happens when you truly surrender beyond the attachment to being something. Often you'll experience the bubble up of unresolved emotion, unresolved trauma, unresolved perceptions. Basically things held in our bodies that we didn't feel we could bear to experience. And so it's important, because it's not taught again at school. Emotional release is not normal in our society because it looks strange. There's all sorts of sounds and body movements that don't make any sense to how we're being conditioned. You almost think maybe I'm going crazy if you were to let these things actually happen. Although we've seen it in animals, they let emotional release take place when they've experienced a traumatic event. They shake it off and they do certain breathing, and we're coming from that same space, having these bodies. And it's like, okay, let's reignite the natural emotional release mechanism. Because you may have experienced when you have a proper emotional release, meaning that there's a true letting go, you feel so calm and centered and spacious. And like just the fear is not there. The desperateness is not there. It feels like you're back at home. It's like you can relate to situations more clearly. The overwhelm doesn't exist in the same way. There's clarity without having to know anything in particular. It's because you're back in the center of your heart. So emotional release is our natural way back home. And I want to make sure that when you're doing self-recognition practices and you're surrendering and acclimatizing back to your true nature, that if emotions come up, you don't prevent them, because we have that choice. We have the willpower to hold emotion in place. This is the capacity that we have. And we hold on to it so long with such stubbornness, we completely forget how to let it go. Or it's not even like it's even recognized that it's happening. It's only recognized that it was there. Once it's let go, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so heavy. I was so fatigued by holding on to all that stuff, but I got used to it. And now that I've let it go, I'm so much lighter and capable and spontaneous and creative. And oh my gosh, I'm being natural to myself. Exactly. So very important module is on emotional release.